Before we jump into
regard. Yeah.
the next topic, I am hearing some rumors, some movement on a potential return of Bobby Jackson to the Sacramento Kings. I have not got it confirmed that it is actually happening, but there is a source is telling me that not only Mike Woodson but Bobby Jackson could be back in the fold here. In Sacramento. So there's potential for Bobby Jackson to return and join Doug Christie's coaching staff.
That would be outstanding, not just for the vibes, because Bobby Jackson is a great vibes guy, but Bobby Jackson's also just a really good coach who has now gotten to separate himself from Sacramento, where he was on Nick Nurse's staff in Philly, and now coming back to Sacramento after being on Nick Nurse's staff. I imagine he would be even better prepared to be on a coaching staff at Doug Christie.
Well, and don't forget, he led the Stockton Kings for a year and led them to the best record in the G League and a playoff playoff appearance. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But hearing good news. Yeah, good things are coming.
Does that mean Nick Nurse is out in Philly?
No,
I think Bobby's just.
I don't think so. But I think that
there's
always like open.
Promotion.
Yeah, there's always potential for open doors, stuff like that. So
NFL,
should get interesting.
The NFL assistant coach thing is weird too, because a lot of assistant coaches are on year-to-year contracts. But then sometimes an assistant coach will get a 2-year contract.
A lot of them are on deals that coincide with the head coach, like your lead assistant. But even that is always sketchy. Because those guys, like if a major job, like if they get a head coaching job interview, you usually allow them to go do that. And if they get the head coaching job, you know.
I don't think you can block them from taking a interview for a promotion.
You're probably right.
If I'm a D-line coach and somebody wants to interview me to be the defensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan can't block that.
Yeah.
But if I'm a D-line coach and I'm under contract and another team wants to interview me to be their tight ends coach, they can block that, if that makes sense. Anyways.
I also, like, people ask about guys like Brad Miller, and I don't know if you're just being funny, Cast Digital Media here.
I think that's a good question, though.
Yeah, but I mean, like, look.
Well, a good thing to address. Like, this isn't just stacking up random former Kings.
No. Like, if Brad Miller wanted to be an NBA coach, he's had more than a decade, probably 15 years since he's played to go be an NBA coach. He's not an NBA coach, and he's not an NBA coach because it's just not his career path after, he's done like outdoor network stuff and like hunting and fishing and all that stuff. And I'd say the same thing with Chris Webber. Like if Chris Webber wanted to be an NBA coach, he's had plenty of time. He's been around the game. If he wanted to get back in the game, like I'm sure that there's a way that he could probably get a job as an assistant somewhere, but it starts with going to camps and doing like Pete Newell big man camp. But there's also the NBA does a really good job of putting on all kinds of like assistant coaching camps to teach, whether it's young guys that are leaving college and are like, hey, I'm not going to be a pro, but I might be able to be like a development coach that works his way up, or all that stuff. The NBA has all kinds of like pathways. And the fact that like we haven't seen a Chris Webber go through that pathway, or you haven't seen a Brad Miller go through that pathway, usually means that they're not going to do that. That's just not who they are. And you don't just like go from out of the game and then like, hey, I want to be an assistant on your staff. And it's like, what are you bringing to the table? Because this is
like I played. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're worth a damn as a coach.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of people who have played, and there are people that you play with. So like Garrett Temple, of all the players that I've covered, is probably like the 40th best player, maybe, if that.
That would be a really fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Is just rank all the players you've covered.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Not right now, not on the fly. We would prepare for it. But
no, of course. Sorry, but
40th best sounds about right for Garrett Temple.
Yeah, and it might be a little lower, it might be a little bit higher. I'm going to guess.
I'm going 40.
I'm probably going to say a little bit lower too.
GT.
But there are some guys that you just know, like if you're around them, that you would love to have them on your staff, that they communicate well, that they connect They connect to players and especially their leaders when they're there. And it's always, made the reference before about like Major League Baseball, like catchers. Doesn't matter how good of a catcher you are. There's probably a good chance you're going to be a good coach because like a lot of Major League, managers are former catchers. But there are players in the NBA that when you're around them, oh man, this dude's totally going to be a coach.
Yeah,
like they've just got
if they
wanted to, when they're all done playing. And I mean, Garrett keeps playing, and people keep paying him $3 to $5 million a year. Like, why not?
To ostensibly be a coach.
Yeah,
that's kind of it. I feel like if you're going to coach, that's a thing that, like you mentioned, when Doug Christie was working in TV, he talked about wanting to coach. Like that was a thing that he had decided, and he had coached his kid at that point, right?
Yeah, but he did training with young players.
Right. So he had some experience in the coach. I don't think you're going to go from being Brad Miller and vibing out at courtside at Kings games to like, oh yeah, I'm going to go be a coach now because Doug and Bobby are doing it. Like, no, Doug and Bobby are very well qualified to do this. Yeah. Brad Miller, God love him, is not qualified to be an NBA coach right now.
Well, that's always been my sort of like complaint with the anti Doug Christie crowd. Like, we're just doing a favor, or just like what exactly are you talking about? Like Doug Christie spent 3.5 years as an assistant. Not only that, but he's been back in the game for like 6 or 7 years. When you're part of the TV crew and you're doing games, like especially when he became the lead analyst, he traveled with the team for like 2 or 3 years. Like you're in it. You're having conversations with players on the daily. So, I mean, you're sitting on team planes with sometimes you're in the front, or they have a section for you.
Yeah.
And you're not part of the rest.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're not at practices or shoot rounds and all that stuff and having conversations. Like Doug has been back in the game for a long time.
Yeah.
And like to where a guy like JJ Redick was, a podcaster after his playing career, and then did some TV work for like a year, and then boom, he's a head coach of the Lakers. That's a little sudden, but at least Doug did put in like 3.5 years as an assistant.
JJ Redick got his job because he did an interview / podcast with LeBron James. That I think was what happened there.
Yeah.
But we've also seen that not work out. Like, I know Steve Kerr was in the front office with the Suns, and then he was a broadcaster, and then he went into coaching, and that has worked out. But remember, Steve Nash did some player development type stuff with the Warriors and was just kind of around, and then went to be the coach of the Nets. Didn't work out.
No.
The bottom line is, Doug is qualified.
Yeah,
for that job. Bobby Jackson is very qualified to be an assistant coach. They're not just going to start calling random ex-Kings because that's the vibe.
Hey, look at that. Our friend Sean Cunningham from KTRA3.
KTRA3, Sean Cunningham. Yeah.
In addition to Mike Woodson joining Doug Christie's staff, I've had multiple sources tell me that Bobby Jackson will indeed return to the Sacramento Kings as an assistant. So again, that's what we're hearing right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I'll let you know when that's official.